Yeah. So we're recording social enterprise options, unincorporated association co-op, CIC, community interest company, CIO, charitable incorporated organization. That's the trading arm of a charity, and B Corp, which is an American process analogous to the CIC. You may see them. The reason it's there is you can't form one here because it's an American thing, but you may see one, you may come across it. But a B Corp is the American version of, and they have quite a few versions of the UK version of the trading, the American trading organization operating over here. So you might come across B Corps. Then there's industrial providence societies, friendly societies. These are archaic things, which I personally have never seen one set up there. They're rather old fashioned and nobody uses them anymore because of CICs. So CICs, which are fairly new. They've been around since about 2004-05. They came about as a result of the Quirk report, which was an investigation into buildings in public ownership. And basically they are a variant of the company limited by guarantee, which is what Wenter is. And there is also a CIC limited by shares. So you can form a community interest company limited by shares or by guarantee. The main differences between a CIC and a normal, open quotes, close quotes, limited company is that the CIC has this thing called an asset lock. And also the CIC limited by shares limits the amount of dividend the shareholders can take. So you can form a CIC limited by shares. In all things, it looks just like a limited company with a social agenda bolted to it. However, your disbursement of dividend to the directors, to the shareholders, is limited to 35%. So you can't share all the profit. So there can be profit in a CIC and it can be distributed to the shareholders, but the CIC limited by shares carries with it some disadvantages. One of the big advantages is that it trades like an ordinary limited company, and the directors can take share dividend, much as any director can, if they also hold shares. But the asset lock and the bespoke articles of a CIC limit what you can and can't do with it. So the asset lock, which is part of the registration process, takes about 3/4 of an hour altogether, and the registration process is longer than a limited company. I'm going back. So what the asset lock is in the articles of association of a limited company, which is effectively the rules of the game. You tick a box when you're forming one online, and unless you want bespoke articles, you tick a box and accept the default set. With the CIC, you can't do that. There are 4 sorts of CIC. There's limited by shares and limited by guarantee, and within those two, there is those with a large membership and those with a small membership. So effectively, there are 4 options. Now, each of those 4 options has a standard set of articles of association, but you have to download them from the Companies House website and put your CIC's name at the top. That makes them bespoke. You don't have to go through the modifying clauses here and there, but that makes them bespoke. So you have on your laptop a set of articles with your CIC's name at the top. Also in that set of articles, whichever sort of CIC you're forming, you will have an asset lock mentioned. The asset lock is a thing that means you can be gifted land, property, heavy goods, vehicles, big stuff, capital. Essentially, it was set up because of land and particularly buildings. So if your local council has got a building that's falling into disrepute because they have neither the funds, the time, the ability to raise the funds, it's just not something that's at the top of their priority list and the roof's falling in. If that building can be gifted to the local, let's say, sports club under an asset lock, then the local sports club can't sell it to a developer, can't do anything with it, except they can own it and they can make it good and apply for grant funding for it and treat it as a resource and grow it for the community's benefit. The asset lock means that if they ever wrap up or want to get rid of this asset that they've been gifted by the council, that asset has to go back where it came from or go to another body with exactly the same asset lock in place. It can't go to a developer. Oh, question coming in on the chats. Will you please change the PowerPoint page at the area and discuss it? Sorry, I'm going through, sorry, Nikki. I'm going through this in brief form because the asset lock is about four pages in, and I'm just sort of explaining which each of them are. So the asset lock, that's what it is. The bespoke articles, I will look at the CIC 36 in some detail, but because time is so short, yeah, sorry, but please phone us and make a date, and one of us will Zoom it, or I'm happy to talk it through with you in detail. But this is such a whiz through So yeah, sorry. Bear with me. So the asset lock is something that stops you giving away assets that you've been given, and you can ignore it when you're filling in your forms, because the default position is that the asset goes back where it came from. That's what the bespoke articles are. They are something that has your name in them. The CIC 36 is a statement of social purpose. Now, your statement of social purpose is personal to you. There is a brilliant example of the statement of social purpose online, which I'll show you in about 2 slides' time. Other things to do with the CIC: minimum of 1 director, single person company can be formed, whether it be limited by shares or it be limited by guarantee. Single person company, however, almost certainly grant giving bodies will prefer more than 2. I've heard that 3 as a minimum is the sort of number that the really big players in the game, like the National Lottery and people, they prefer to see 3 players, simply because for the same reason as they prefer a company limited by guarantee to one limited by shares. They feel that you're more likely to have a genuine social purpose and not to run off with the money, which is my cynical view of why they do it. Because if it's limited by shares, a limited company is at the behest of its directors, and if it comes into a large wedge of money from a funder, there is the possibility of the directors deciding to do something weird with it. If it's limited by guarantee, they can't do a thing with it except use it for the furtherance of the company's objectives. There is no facility for people taking money out by way of dividend. Fraud's always an option, I guess, but a CIC limited by guarantee is as close as you can get to a charity, but still being a trading organization. So this minimum of 1 director thing, same deal. They reckon, I think, the charity, the fund givers, I think they reckon that if there's 2 or 3 directors, you're less likely to A, fall short of your objectives, in delivering what you've said you'll deliver, and B, have more control over the operation of the business because you've got more than 1 head involved. So it is a fact that grant giving bodies prefer 2 at least. Some allegedly want 3. Directors can be related. There's no problem with 2 or 3 directors being related. It's not the best plan, because if 3 brothers or 3 sisters form a company, potentially, again, going to fund givers, you run the risk of them not taking you seriously. But the directors can be paid in the normal manner, PAYE. But if it's a company limited by guarantee, that's it. You can take no shareholding dividend. So the actual incorporation process takes about 45 minutes. You go into the government gateway, which, if any of you have formed a limited company, is straightforward, although it's a bit clicky. There's lots of no, yes, no, and entering your name and address. You start off with a 2-factor authentication going through the government gateway. And then as part of the process, you go through, this is the name of the CIC, they automatically check if somebody else has got it, and you move on through the process. You have to upload these 2 documents which set you apart from the normal run-of-the-mill limited companies. This CIC 36, which I'll get to, and the Articles of Association, which I've just mentioned, which is bespoke to you because it's got your name on it and is now saved on your laptop. So you've got the articles which you've downloaded and put your name on and saved as a PDF, let's say. And then there's the CIC 36. The last 4 points here: it costs 27 quid, card or PayPal. You can do it by post in the old-fashioned way, where Form IN01 and Form CIC 36 and 25 pages of downloaded articles. You can do that. It's a big slab of paper to send through the post, and it takes significantly longer. It says can take up to 15 days, and I have known people take up to 6 weeks. The paper forms are not the way to go. A, think of the trees, think of net zero. B, it's so much quicker and easier to do it live online. And again, if anybody wants to, we are more than happy to do a screen share and help you with it. So one last point on this slide: the annual return. It used to be called annual return. It's now generally called confirmation statement. This is a must. It happens every limited company in the land, whatever form of company you be, CIC, well, whatever form of incorporated entity. I think certainly CICs, limited companies, guarantee, shares, whatever. On the anniversary of your incorporation, you must do your confirmation statement. I can't overstress that. It's a must. You get reminders, but if you miss it, you get a reminder, you get a warning of impending strike off. And then if you miss it 30 days-ish after the date, they strike you off, and they just take the company away. They shut you. So there is no way back from that. Don't miss your confirmation statement. That's just really, really important. It's a 5-minute box tick confirming the name, the address, and all the bits of the company. It's literally 5 minutes, but it's an absolute must. So the CIC community interest statement. This is a CIC's community interest statement. This is an online example. This isn't one we've put together. This is the official online example, because some people, they tend to put too much in there. And the community interest statement is a very basic thing. Essentially, it says what you're going to do, who for, how you're going to do it, and how is that going to benefit your local community, or what is your social purpose statement. Good point. The third bullet point there. Good point to consider objectives in a social sense. So not just we're going to make loads of money and plow it back into the business and do great stuff. They want to know what you're going to do. Are you going to relieve hardship, poverty, assist employability, get the kids off the streets, provide help and provision for vulnerable people, something that has a genuine community benefit. This one is the example of a village shop one. It's not a real one, as I say, it's the online example from the office of the CIC regulator, which is the overseeing body. However, you can see what it's like. In general, we run a village shop with a strong community focus. How will it benefit the community? 6 lines on how it's going to benefit the community. Same again, second one down. Very short paragraph on each side. And finally, if the community makes a surplus, it will be used for, and everybody puts this, we expect it will be reinvested in the business to further our social objectives. And that's a legal statement. That's something that you are expected to stick to, but it's light and it's easy to operate, as is most incorporation process on Companies House these days. The second page of this is people forming the business. Now note, there's my point, that scanned or signed or scanned, that's fine. So you don't have to route this around the country for everybody to put ink on the page. You can scan signatures, you can import scanned signatures and put it on there. This is the we the undersigned declare. That's what this is. So this is again a serious piece of legal forming. So you need this to be right, and this forms the backbone of your company. Having said that, you can add directors. There are forms for adding directors, changing addresses, all the things you'd expect. They're all straightforward online process, and there's nothing to stop you adding directors all the time. Brief note on the directors or stakeholders or members. Really good idea to have somebody who fits what you're trying to do. For example, if you're trying to do sport for the kids, let's say, sport for young people who are, let's say you're in your area, there are areas of the community where there are disaffected youth kicking around, not in employment, education, training, that sort of thing, and you're trying to do a sports, get them off the streets type project. Really good idea to have somebody who's good at that involved, because it will help, A, you deliver, B, you get funding to deliver, and it gives you credibility. So whatever it is that you're doing, it makes a lot of sense if you can have some good names attached to what you do, not just for the look of the name, but who are genuinely going to help you. It really makes a difference when funding time comes around, applying for funding, which is hard to do. But you stand a better chance if you've got a really good set of people involved helping you deliver what you're trying to deliver. That's not worth overstating. That's a good one. There are all the normal things to do with limited company compliance. Big one, people tend to forget: motor insurance. Do not forget to tell your insurer that you are using the vehicle for company use, for business use. The default position is that you're allowed to go to and from your regular place of work in your car on standard domestic, social, pleasure. Is DSP? Yes, social, domestic and pleasure insurance. You need to tell them it's business insurance, otherwise your insurance is void if you're traveling doing business. If you're going to see customers, going to see bid writers, whoever. PL, public liability, good plan to have. Insures members of the public against mischance causing accident through you trading. Product liability is a must if you've got anything that goes in or on people. If you haven't got product liability, you better be really sure that what you've got can be laid off on others. So if it's food, you need a supply chain going back, proving where it's come from, who's dealt with it, who's wrapped it, all of that. So product liability is worth looking at under some circumstances. Continuity, rare. You need to be trading for a while before that becomes even an option, but it tends to be very expensive. But you need to be trading a while, because only then can an insurer assess how much value you have to the business should you stop doing what you do. Ditto jury service cover and key person cover. Professional indemnity, which I skipped over there because it's not in the same bunch as those three. Professional indemnity, if you give advice. An awful lot of CICs are giving advice in some form. It may be healthcare, it may be helping socially disadvantaged people. Anything you do can be interpreted as advice. Then you need PI, which will insure you against advice you give causing problems and you being held responsible. Whether or not you've genuinely done anything wrong, people who are on the wrong end of a problem tend to look around for someone to bite. And if you've got professional indemnity in place, then that helps a lot. You may want to check with your mortgage provider as well. There are various legislative issues and permissive issues and licensing things around trading in various forms. Contact your local council. They will tell you. There will be a bbfa.biz website's worth a look. Better Business for All. That is council contacts. Some, not all councils, have a named individual who is the main contact. You contact the council. To give you an example, in Watford, it's a lady called Karmjit Gill. As far as I know, she's still in post there. She's an experienced environmental health officer, and she is the BBFA person. So you contact Karmjit and say, I'm starting a business and I'm making sweets, selling piercings, and selling live animals. She will say, okie dokie, sweets, that's environmental health, and she'll refer to the people for that, and she'll tell you who you need to contact regarding permits, permissions, licensing for the other things you're proposing to do. It's a service that you can't do without, because if you're selling anything that's subject to legislation or licensing, you really need to know that you're doing it right. And there is a person in most councils who is the contact point for that. And that's what the BBFA website's about. Health and safety exec, the other things here, health and safety, legal aspects of business, trading standards, find your local trading standards office. They're all standard across limited companies of all types, and any trading entity should look at these things. Brief mention of the ICO, Information Commissioner's Office. If you're storing people's names, addresses, etc. Right, time's up. I'm going to talk faster. Consider GDPR. You need to go to ICO to check that. And bookkeeping accounts, there's some potential, some but not all, of the possible ways of doing it using pool software. If you don't want to use an accountant or a bookkeeper, you can do it yourself. And there, lastly, is a to-do list. As a reminder, this will be sent out in PDF form, and the recording will be going out to everybody. So I have 38 and counting down seconds to close the breakout room. There's some other useful links to do with it, CIC regulator and people, and there's the when to contact details there, which I'm sure you're all aware of. So I will, with 24 seconds in hand, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching if you have been. I hope it was vaguely useful. It's just a taster, as you can tell. There's quite a lot to go into. Please make an appointment. Any one of us will go through it in detail with you. Right, with a deep breath, signing off now. Thanks for listening.